Good day, everybody. It's Andrew here, and welcome back to today's update. We're going to have an update from Joe Manchin. Yes, another update from Joe Manchin. It's going to be a Joe Manchin kind of day, folks. So this video is titled Checks for Seniors. And if you've been following my channel, at this point you know that we're talking about the stimulus check that Bernie Sanders wants to include in this next stimulus package, which is going to be anywhere between $800, $1,000, or $1,400. Now, why are we talking so much about Joe Manchin? Well, if you watched my previous video today, you know that inflation came up historically high, the highest it's been in 30 years. And not only is this making things more difficult for seniors as far as raising prices of things you buy on a daily basis, like food and gas, not to mention rent, it's also making Democrats become even more divided in regards to whether or not to include stimulus checks in this package, and I'll explain why. Obviously, there's the argument that if things are getting more expensive, seniors need this check even more. And that is what progressives like Bernie Sanders are saying. So we have an even stronger push from Democrats to include a stimulus check for seniors in this stimulus package. Then we have Joe Manchin, who says, because inflation is so high, the government needs to spend less to try and control inflation. And he's indirectly saying that we should not do more stimulus checks. Well, if you watched my previous video, you know that I strongly disagree with this argument, and at this point you know that the point of my channel is to be a voice for seniors and to be a voice for those who are disabled, to make sure that our country can no longer ignore the people that put them in the White House. President Biden promised to increase benefits across the board, and my job on this channel is to be a voice for you to make sure that we hold President Biden to his promises. Now, Joe Manchin obviously is on the opposite end of this spectrum, and he is someone that we've become really frustrated with. But it's really important that we take the time to actually listen to Joe Manchin and see what he has to say. Because the more informed we are with the opposition's arguments, the better we can argue against that to make sure we get stimulus checks done. Now, I know it's difficult to listen to people who oppose stimulus, but I think it really is important that we take the time to listen to Joe Manchin, see what he has to say. That way we can take a look and say, you know what? These are his reasons, and this is how we can work with him, right? Because these are the things that President Biden and Bernie Sanders are taking into account. They listen to Joe Manchin, and they try and find a compromise where they can meet in the middle. So although it might be difficult to listen to for everybody who watches my videos, I think it's really important that we listen to this message from Joe Manchin and see exactly what he had to say, if anything, just so we're more informed as to exactly where he's coming from, which might make it easier to compromise and bring us closer to a deal. Now, a couple of arguments he brings up in this video is, of course, inflation, and he wants to see whether or not inflation will slow down before they approve the stimulus package. Basically, what he's been saying for a while now is take a pause and see what happens with inflation. The problem with that is Democrats don't have a ton of time. First of all, it's really important that they get the stimulus package done before December 3rd, when the debt ceiling crisis is going to happen once again. And secondly, really, it's looking like Democrats are going to lose seats in both the House and the Senate in 2022. So we really only have about a year left to approve as much stimulus as possible, right? So time really is not on Democrats' side. So this narrative of taking time is really frustrating when it comes to Joe Manchin, because quite frankly, we don't have time. Not to mention the fact that seniors and those who are disabled have been taking way too much time waiting for these stimulus checks to begin with. So guys, with that said, I think it's really important that you take a listen and see what Joe Manchin had to say. So stick around for a few minutes, hear Joe Manchin's message, and let me know your thoughts in the comments below.
Republicans react. Let's talk about all of this with the man in the middle of the tax and spending debate and all the legislation here, West Virginia Democratic Senator Joe Manchin. Senator, thanks for joining us.
Good to be with you, Brett.
How did you see that election? You hear how Republicans see it. How did you see it?
I just saw it to confirm that we have a divided country. When you think of two blue states, or one state, Virginia has been leaning blue and been fairly blue for 10 years. New Jersey has always been historically blue. And to see what happened and how close and how divided. Can you imagine 2.2 million votes in New Jersey and 100 or 200 vote separation, how close it was in Virginia? I hope it's a wake-up call for all of us. We need to do our job.
What do Democrats take it from it, do you think? What should they take from it?
Well, I would think that, let's say on the legislation, we're about to start negotiating on, which is the reconciliation bill. The reconciliation bill, I think what it says is kind of slow down, take a breath. Let's look at this. We're talking about major tax overhaul, reform. We're talking about changing our energy policies. We're talking about a whole social rearrangement. We're talking about $29 trillion of debt. We better get our hands around it and be responsible. And I've always said, if you can't get your financial house in order, it's hard to do anything.
You know, President Biden was asked today about what he thought the issue was in Virginia. Take a listen to this answer.
And do you think that Terry McAuliffe would have won if your agenda had passed before Election Day?
Well, I think we should have passed before Election Day, but I'm not sure that I would be able to have changed the number of very conservative folks who turned out in the red districts who were Trump voters, but maybe.
You think if infrastructure had passed before Election Day, would
It should have passed just on its own merits. It's a piece of bill that we've worked about months ago. Took 5 months to put together. They've had it in the House for 2 months, and we've been begging them. You know, but they keep wanting to link them, and there's no such thing as linking two pieces of legislation or holding one hostage over the other. They should go up and down on their own merits. They should be worked on their own merits.
Well, to that point, economy was really a major issue in this election, the top issue. So does passage of infrastructure and reconciliation, those two bills, help or hurt that message?
Well, if you don't take in consideration what people are going through at the gas pumps and at the grocery stores, the inflation that's coming, at first we thought it was transitory. If you recall, Brett, about a month or more ago, I said, let's take a strategic pause. Let's see where we are. We don't know about COVID. The variants of COVID kept going up and down. We weren't sure what it's going to have effect on our economy. They kept saying, well, this inflationary thing is basically going to be maybe transitory, and we're finding out it's not. And then we have a geopolitical fallout from Afghanistan that we're going to have to deal with sooner or later somewhere in the world. And I said, the need that we have right now of all the aspirational things in the reconciliation bill, most of that is covered in the ARP bill with the American Rescue Plan that we voted in January.
$1.9 trillion.
We have people covered clear up through 2022 and beyond. So it wasn't like an urgent, and I don't know why we're acting like it's so urgent.
So does this result last night embolden you to make sure that the Build Back Better or the reconciliation bill does no harm to the economy?
Oh, absolutely. I'm concerned No, absolutely. I'm concerned. I've been talking about our debt. I've been talking about inflation. I've been talking about the fallout we may have and all these things. And, you know, maybe they've listened and maybe they haven't. We'll see. We'll see if they double down.
All right, so on the gas prices at the pump, who's to blame? President Biden says OPEC is to blame. Others say climate policies have changed the dynamic. What do you say?
Well, I say that we can basically do more for ourselves. We've been energy independent for the first time in 67 years. Why can't we do more? Why can't we produce more? We've got plenty of natural gas. My state, beautiful state of West Virginia, has an ocean of natural gas under it. If they just let us build a pipeline, we could get the product to market. And why don't we do more drilling, and why don't we do more, basically, production in the United States? I'm not depending on OPEC. I'm not depending on other countries for my energy anymore. We know how to do it. We have the technology. We should be relying on ourselves.
So is the president wrong in that?
I have a difference of opinion.
So yes. I want to talk about process because the House is moving forward with both of these bills. And we've got reporting from Chad Pergram, a group of 5 moderate Democrats insisting that the Build Back Better bill, get a full CBO, Congressional Budget Office score before it goes to the floor, potentially as early as tomorrow. As a result, Democratic leaders are trying to force the issue, pressure these moderate Democrats to vote yes. Moderate Democrats, we're told, are irate that they are having to fillet 2,135 pages of new legislation on the fly. Quote, we resent it, said one moderate Democratic source. This is only strengthening our resolve. What do you say to those moderates
I would say
in the
to
House?
all of my House friends on both the Democrat and Republican side, but speaking to my Democrat sides, there has to build some goodwill. Let them vote on the infrastructure bill. Take the time to work the reconciliation bill the way it needs to be worked, the CBO scoring, talking more about the effects it has all through our economy and all through people's lives. That's something reasonable to ask. I understand that. And I'm not going to tell anyone how they should run their end of this Congress of ours. And Nancy Pelosi is very capable. I know her. I get along fine with her. We just, maybe come from 2 different parts of the country and 2 different philosophical beliefs.
In that bill that's going to be filed either tonight or tomorrow, there are taxes. There's language to raise taxes on individuals below the $400,000 threshold. And and one of them is on nicotine. Have you changed your position on regressive taxes or anything below that 400,000?
Well, I never thought the 400,000 barrier should have been there to begin. Okay, if you're going to do tax reform, do tax reform. The last time we had a balanced budget with surpluses was when everybody paid a little bit of something, making sure that the richest of the richest and all of those are in between. But with that, where we are right now, a tax on nicotine, that doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever.
Is that a non-starter for you?
Well, there's so many things in there. I guess
You have a lot of non-starters?
I have a lot of concerns, let's put it that way. But I'm not going to, they're working off the House bill. That's not going to be the bill I work off of.
So
We're
if
working
somebody's
off
sitting
that.
at home on the couch and they're
Yeah.
listening to this, and we explain the process, but sometimes you need a whiteboard because there's a lot of stuff happening over here. When would this process move forward, in your mind?
This process, if they're going to vote on it tomorrow, then it'll go through the scrub of next week. Then it'll be a week before it comes to us, as I understand. So if that comes over and they start working off of that, and then we have a reconciliation program with a vote-a-rama that basically has a bird rule, and these are all pretty technical things, but it basically sees as it fits if it doesn't fit. Once we get a ruling from the parliamentarian, forget about this. People might be all excited about something now or say, that's a non-starter. It might not even fit in the bill because on our side it doesn't fit. It doesn't come within the rules of reconciliation. So wait until that's done, see what you have before you, and then we start voting.
So, for example, Speaker Pelosi wants to put paid leave policies on small businesses in a partisan package.
I'm more concerned about unpaid leave because if you put that paid leave in, it's not being paid for. I'm all for paid leave, and I believe that people should have the
But you
ability.
think it should be done separately?
Separately, completely separately, because we can do this in a bipartisan way. Brett, anything that we do in a bipartisan way is lasting. It stays. And this is something where both the employees can participate, people can build up their credits and use their time as they desire.
What about anything that deals with immigration, legal status? Now, I understand you're talking about what the parliamentarian is going to rule,
Sure.
but Senator Menendez said, listen, we're going to take no doesn't work for us. We're going to plow forward on this thing.
Well, I'm not going to vote to overrule the parliamentarian. I've always said they call that the bird rule.
Yeah.
And that's when you go outside the
Robert Byrd from West Virginia.
the seat I sit in right now. And I'm not going to do that. They all know that. If the parliamentarian rules on something, if the people that have been here working are allowed to continue to work and help our economy and help their family, but help all of us, we all benefit from it. I'm not for basically
Let's
giving
just take the
benefit.
parliamentarian out of it and
Okay.
say two more questions.
Sure.
One is you've had people out to your houseboat. You've had people following you around. You've had progressives,
Yeah.
protesting you. Cory Bush says Joe Manchin's opposition to Build Back Better Act is anti-black, anti-child, anti-woman, anti-immigrant. When we talk about transformative change, we are talking about a bill that will benefit black, brown, and indigenous communities. Your response to Congresswoman?
I would just say the Congresswoman doesn't know me. She doesn't know me. And happy to talk to her. I think maybe she'll have a different opinion. Go home to West Virginia and ask people. I think you'll get a different opinion. This is a shame when we start this war of words. I'm not going to speak ill about any of my congressional friends and colleagues on the House side or the Senate side. We can have a difference of opinion. The rhetoric around here has gotten so harsh and so toxic that you can't agree to disagree anymore. You can't sit down and say, okay, I disagree with you, Brett. And you're going to say, okay, Joe, do we agree on the same problem? I said, yeah, let's start working. Tell me what you think you would fix it. That's not happening.
So
And
progressives-
let me tell you what I don't hear,
Yeah.
what scares the bejesus out of me. I don't hear people saying, this is good for our country. It's more or less on both sides. This is better for my party. This is better for the 2022 election.
So let me end where I started,
Sure.
last night's election.
Okay.
The Congressional Progressive Caucus in the House now stands at 95 members. Looking at last night and the results of it, what's the over-under for 2022? Are there more or fewer?
The progressives, and I spoke to some of them, and they're nice people, good people. They're aspirational. I don't believe philosophically with them at all, but they don't have any chance of getting defeated where they come from. The thing they're doing is basically changing the dynamics of the moderates that it takes for them to be in a majority, taking it down way low.
I've asked you this 7 times, but has your party left you?
I'm a West Virginia Democrat, Brett. I don't know. I don't know where. Maybe I belong at times, but I believe I'm a fiscally responsible and socially compassionate. And you know what? I have a lot of Democrats that feel the same as I do. I have a lot of Republicans feel the same as I do.